Welcome to the Connected Lawyer Podcast. This is episode 4. I'm Aaron.
And I am Bryan. Aaron, the last time we talked about ActiveWords, and I sort of introduced you to it, told you how I used it, and since then you've had an opportunity to check it out. So I'm curious to find out how that went for you and what your thoughts are.
Yeah, I've totally lost my mind with it. I mean, I feel like I might be a little bit obsessed. So thank you for bringing it up because I never would have tried this out if we hadn't done that show. But I've been playing with it a lot, and I'll just kind of talk about some of the obsession, that the elements of obsession anyway. So first of all, I don't think I'm really using it for what most people buy it for. And
That doesn't surprise me in the least.
yeah, because you introduced it as a text expansion tool, right?
Correct. And
And
that's what it's sold as well.
yeah, that's what it's sold as, but it's really way more than that. And it can do way more than that. And some of the things that you were actually doing with it were what opened my eyes to it and got me to download it in the first place. And just as a couple of examples, um, well, first of all, in terms of text expansion, when it does that, it's super cool. Like it is just like such a relief. So as an example, one thing I do every single morning, or at least every day that I come into the office, the first thing I do is I open up a timesheet in Harvest. Okay, that's the time software that I use to keep track of my time, and and I make a standard time entry to open up my timesheet, which is the letters IC hyphen the place that I'm working. So if I'm working at home, I put home. If I'm on vacation, I put the place that I'm at. And then I say just a couple of notations. Yes, complete in one time and billing system that my time goes into, and yes or no, complete in another time and billing system I go to. And so, and then at the end of the day, I will change the IC to C to say yes, my timesheet is complete, and then my assistant can go in and do the things that she does. And so it's just like a standard thing that I do every single day. And usually I go back to the last timesheet, which sometimes is a couple of days ago, where I have that and I cut it and I paste it. And so now I just type IC space and boom, it puts in this standard entry. And I can't tell you like how much joy. If that's all the software did, I think I would buy it.
It would absolutely be worth it. I feel that way with my email address. Just the number of times you have to enter your email during the day at one point or another. And that's the thing, like when I rebuild my computer or get a new one or whatever, that's the thing that drives me nuts. Or if I'm using somebody else's computer and I can't use that text expansion and I have to type my whole email address, which I know is absolutely terrible. Talk about a first world problem. But doing that as opposed to a couple of keystrokes, that magic there is just you get used to it.
You get used to it. And I think I'm already completely, if I have to go back to the old way of cutting and pasting some of these things, I'm gonna revolt. So that's really nice. And because I asked you in our last show, or whenever we talked about this, I asked you, how do you keep track of all the different shortcuts that you make? And I've sort of found, for me anyway, the answer is like if I can't remember what it is, then it's not an effective thing. Like the ones that I'm using it for are the things that I'm doing all the time, and I don't have to worry about consulting a list or remembering what they were. It's just like what I do.
I think that makes a lot of sense, and as a practical matter, I think that's sort of how I treat it. Except for every once in a while, I'll have some sort of long text in stored in one of the shortcuts that I'll go back and look up just because I don't want to retype it or whatever. But yeah, I think to a large extent, the ones you don't remember, okay, you don't remember them, you go on with life.
Yeah,
But the ones you do, you're using all of the time.
all the time. And so the other things that I started doing with it are um, there's a couple of PDFs that I use a lot, and one of them is a big compilation of a bunch of regulations that I've kind of put together into a single PDF to make them easy to search. And they don't work well in Lexis or Westlaw. That, this tool is kind of the best I've come up with as far as this particular set of regulations and all the commentary. And it's like 1,000-page PDF at this point. And so I open it a lot. And it used to be that I'd have to, sort of navigate to the folder and open the file and click on it. And now I just type reg space space and boom, it pops up like magic. And I just, every time I do that, I think, gosh, this software is so inexpensive for what it does, you know?
Yeah, that's a fabulous use case for it. After we talked the last time, you at the end you were sort of talking about how you could use something like this to reduce your mental load.
Right.
And I'd never really thought about it in that way before, but since then, I've really started using it to open folders that I need to navigate to, whether it's like sort of a top level clients folder where all of my client stuff is, or some sort of drilled down folder that I'm working in a lot. Just being able to do that just with a few keystrokes and a couple of taps to the space bar, and I don't have to navigate through Windows Explorer to try to find whatever it is that I'm looking for. It
Yeah.
really does take that mental load from you.
It really does. And it's sort of in addition to a mental load, I think one of these things, like when you don't really, you sort of start to take these for granted, but when you go to work, there's all these kinds of little basic, sort of housekeeping tasks that you do repetitively over and over, and you don't really like them. And they're part of the thing that sort of wears you out. I'm being overly dramatic. It's not like it's a grindstone or something like that, but it just, at the end of the day, you feel like, oh, I'm tired. I've worked a lot, and you don't want that feeling to come from something that could be automated, right? You want it to come from
Right.
really meaningful, productive work. And
Like
so
actually accomplishing something.
exactly. And a really good example is that standard timesheet entry or opening the regs. For me, those are the two of the biggest examples that I will tell myself, well, this isn't a big deal. It's not a big deal to go back and copy the old time entry and then navigate forward to today's timesheet and paste it. What's the big deal? And I think that we're sort of selling ourselves short when we say stuff like that. That actually it's a bigger deal than we're giving it credit for. These little repetitive tasks, and we're sort of under valuing something that can automate that. And when we kind of get ticky tacky about license fees and buying software and automating processes, I think we're making a mistake. We're undervaluing the really significant productivity enhancements that some of these relatively inexpensive things can bring about. So, I think it's definitely good. Um, I'll tell you. So I've even gone further with this now. And today, actually, I purchased on their website. They have it's $90 an hour is what they charge for support time. And so I bought an hour of support, and then you have to send them a support ticket that gives the little code that you get when you buy support, and tell them what it is you want to spend the hour doing. And I said, well, I want to spend the hour looking at Chat GPT with them.
Of course you do.
And I'll tell you exactly why. And forgive me if I ramble on here for a second to try to explain what in my mind I'm trying to accomplish here. Okay. Back to Harvest, which I've used since January 1st of 2013. I love the way that it keeps track of time. I love the interface. It's just a great, it's a great piece of software as far as I'm concerned. But what it doesn't do is there should be a button that shows your time report for the day. Okay. So you can click a button and there's a drop down menu, and it will show you your time report for the year, for the month, for the week, and then it will have a custom. And so what I do is I will click custom, and then I will limit it down to today, and then I will cut that link and paste it into a little shortcut that I have in Chrome called Today. So I change that on these days that I like to keep track of what I'm doing all day long, especially busy days. I like to click today and say, how many billable hours do I have? How many non-billable hours do I have? What are the list of clients I worked on today? I like to do that. And I have filed multiple feature requests with Harvest. Can you just add another thing? I think it would be easy to do that just says today. So I could click and show
Today,
my
right?
time, my report for today. And they write back and they're very nice. We get lots of feature requests, et cetera, et cetera. But we're not going to do it. Well, I opened up Chat GPT and I said, hey, can you, if I pasted the hyperlink for, for what it looks like when I click today. And you imagine a hyperlink where it says, harvest.com/, and then there's a little formula in the hyperlink that you can clearly see is using today's date, right?
Right.
Okay. And so what I need is a script that will change that, will calculate what today is and recalculate the hyperlink and paste it in. And I said, Chat GPT, can you do this? And it said, sure. And sure enough, it spit out a script that that runs in Python. So I opened up Python and I ran the script, and it does. It produces a link that works, and I can paste it in. And so then I said to Chat GPT, okay, can you do this where I just push a button instead of run? Because now you're
Right.
generating the correct hyperlink, but you're making me cut and paste it into my browser. I said, sure, I can do it with a button, but you have to download a graphical user interface and paste the script into that. And so then I said, well, can ActiveWords do this? And it said, yes, ActiveWords can do this because it has a scripting ability. I'm talking to a computer, by the way, at this time. And it knows
but the computer is correct. The ActiveWords has scripting in it.
It says it has scripting ability, and it generated an ActiveWords script so then what I want to do is type the word today space and have it open up a browser to calculate and input a hyperlink that is today's timesheet. Not the timesheet, but the report, the list of clients, and Harvest produces a report for the day. And so I'm really excited, right? Because now I'm feeling like, okay, if ChatGPT can produce ActiveWords scripts, then I don't have to learn how to script. I can
script.
Yeah, I could just say, hey, ChatGPT, I want you to open Outlook, generate an email to Bryan, and fill in a subject line, that says, what are we talking about on our next podcast? And it should be able to do that because it can open up Outlook. It can do all that. Well, anyway, the script doesn't work. And so then I said to ChatGPT, the script doesn't work. And it said, well, open up the logs, and it knew where those were, and tell me what the logs say. So I did, and it said,
So it knew where to tell you to look for your logs from ActiveWords?
It knows where the logs are. And
that's interesting.
And it was able to read the logs and find its own error. And it said, the script is not defining some variable. And it said, try this script. And so I put that script in, and it still didn't work. And now I realize, okay, now it's not as easy as I thought it was, which is why I bought this support hour. But I'm going to meet with these guys and open up ChatGPT and see if together we could figure out how to get this thing to write ActiveWords scripts, because I think that would be amazing.
Well, that would be great, because the scripting, sort of the one aspect I've never gotten into in ActiveWords, because honestly, I just didn't want to spend the time learning to script it,
right?
Because I couldn't think of the use cases where that would be useful. In your situation, absolutely, that's that use case makes a lot of sense.
It seems like something that, even though it didn't work, I was sort of fascinated with the idea that this thing was able to tell what I was trying to do and give it a shot.
and I know we're going back to this Chat GPT thing again, subject again, but that is fascinating, because one, it recognized ActiveWords and what it was.
Yes.
And then two, new things about it, like that apparently the type of scripting it uses, and it knew where to find the logs that ActiveWords uses to keep track of whatever it is that's going on.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's I don't
And
know if that's awesome or scary or
well,
both.
yeah. And it was good enough that if I had a professional programmer on staff and I had said in the time that I spent on this today, which is like an hour, hour and a half, in that time, if I had called in my professional programmer and said, hey, what will it take to do a script that does this, that automatically calculates a hyperlink for today's harvest timesheet report, he or her wouldn't be able to parse through all that in an hour and a half any better than I did with ChatGPT. And even though it didn't work, I would have thought, okay, my programmer gets it, right? They gave it a shot. Yeah, they need to tweak it, but they get it. So it's very powerful. And I'm still thinking about ActiveWords in terms of getting them to look at this. And I would think from their perspective, if they could go out and market and say to people, hey, you don't have to learn how to script. You can make this thing do whatever you want because we've tuned it to ChatGPT now.
Oh wow,
Yeah.
that's kind of crazy.
Yeah, it really is. The other thing I'll say about them, because I reached out to them to do a security review, because it is the kind of software that you really need to think about, because it's sitting there logging every single keystroke that you type in.
I mean, in effect, it is at its core a keylogger.
It's a keylogger, so it would see usernames and passwords and client information. It's a heavy footprint or a potential attack surface in terms of security. So I take it seriously, and I reached out to ActiveWords on that subject. I just filed a support request and said, hey, I have some questions about this keylogger and how the security of it is done. And I'll tell you what, the CEO of the company contacted me. He put me in touch with the CTO, and I have a meeting with him this Thursday to talk about this very issue. So I I just was very impressed by that. They really seem to care, because I'm not really financially valuable to this company as a small firm.
Right. Right. You're a small firm. I mean, even if you go the enterprise route, what is that, $100 a year
Yeah,
for your size, or the personal's 40-ish?
right.
Uh yeah, they're nobody's nobody's making a bonus off of a sale to you.
Yeah, it's not worth their time in terms of dollars and cents, but it definitely shows um, it definitely shows that they stand behind their product and that they're willing to talk about sensitive security issues and if and answer tough questions. So that gave me a lot of confidence about it. And they did refer me to their privacy policy, which goes into some detail. It says that the keystrokes are stored in a buffer for the time that it takes for it to determine whether or not you're issuing a command, and that the buffer is securely deleted upon certain instances that happen all the time. So for example, every time you right click, it securely deletes the buffer. Every time it executes a command, it securely deletes the buffer. So at this point, I'm just going into a really deep dive with them to say, okay, well, how does it do that? How are you sure that it's doing that? What are the security risk assessments you've done? And I just love it so much that I want to have a high degree of confidence in it, and I'm thrilled that they're responding to me.
Yeah, and in my experience, I've never gone with to them with this a security request like you did, but that is literally what you do. That's your real job. Is security assessment type stuff for privacy. So I understand why you did it, but my past experience has been the same. Like the first time I downloaded and installed the software, I got an email from the CEO. And now I have no doubt it's an automatically generated email or whatever, but it says if you have questions or whatever, you want to talk to me. And I responded back to him the first time, and he actually said, well, let's have a phone call. We had a telephone call.
Nice.
Like I'm just average Joe user. And we had, he called me and we had a chat about how it works and some of the features and all of that, which you certainly don't get with every software company that's out there.
You don't, and I really appreciate it very much. it's the difference between somebody who sells a product and they're focused on it being a good product and it being shipped right and all of that versus somebody who's providing a service. And these folks, their mindset seems to really be wrapped around their users, right? They're taking care of their users. They care that their users like it. Um, they get an energy from seeing users who are happy with their software, and that's why they're doing it. So, yeah, overall, my impression of the software is that it's very powerful, and of the company that puts it out is that their heart's in the right place, that they are good people. That's kind of been my impression all the way through this. So that's really neat.
And that's been my experience for the last decade or so that I've been using their software. So
Yeah,
uh, absolutely am a huge fan of it, and I'm glad you got to experience it and now have become obsessed with it because
yeah,
that just opens up more opportunities for me to learn from you in terms of how to best use it. I mean, one of the things just from our conversation before was you talked about how you're now opening up Harvest with a couple of clicks. For me, for my practice management and time and billing, I use Rocket Matter, and literally it's a bookmark on my toolbar in my browser. So it's right there. All I have to do is click it. But you know what? If my hands are on my browser and I type RM and it, space, and it takes me to Rocket Matter, so I don't have to take my hand off, go to the mouse, move the mouse over to, where that link is on my browser and then open it up. That's in and of itself a savings that you really don't think of. But it is. It just makes your day better. In some minor, maybe microscopic way, but it really does.
yeah. It really does. And I will mention because you talked about using it to quickly go to certain folders that you need to go to, and I thought about that because, and we talk about Tekkit, on the show pretty much every time now. And Tekkit has a piece of software called Quick Jump, and I think it's $60 a year per user, something like that. I can't remember. It's priced commensurately with the rest of their products, and I've been using that for a couple of years. And I wondered, okay, well, is ActiveWords kind of duplicative of that? And it turns out it's really not. They sit side by side, and I consider both of them necessary. And so with ActiveWords, you can jump right into a folder that you use a lot. So let's say you have, a folder where you keep invoices or receipts. And so you type receipts, space, and it opens that folder right up. And that's nice. But it sort of requires you to know what folder you're going to. You wouldn't want to create a separate folder or a separate shortcut for every single folder that you're trying to access. That would be ridiculous. And then every time you made a new folder, you'd have to create a new shortcut. So it isn't really useful in terms of a general tool of jumping into folders across your computer. It
I agree with that. Like, it's good for certain high volume folders. This is some place I go every time, in the same way that you go to that reg
Yep.
PDF every day. Same sort of thing. Obviously, you're not going to create a shortcut for every document in your system, but there may be one or two documents or one or two folders that are key for you that you want to be in or want easy or quick access to.
Yeah. And for that, in that use case, I think ActiveWords is the best tool because what Quick Jump does is, in my case, you set up some hotkey. So in my case, I click Control Shift and the letter D, the D key, and that opens up a little search interface. And then I can start typing in what I think the name of the folder is. So I could type the name of the client and it would show a list of the clients, all the client subfolders, or I could type receipts and it would show that receipts folder, but then you still have to click and open the folder. So it's a
So
good way to get into all your folders.
It sounds like the interface that you describe anyway, and I haven't never used Quick Jump, and now you've got me interested. But the interface you described sounds a lot like Simply Files.
It's exactly
Like,
like Simplifile. It feels
okay,
exactly like Simplifile.
so you just start typing, and it narrows down to these are the
Yep.
folders that have those. Okay,
Yep, and you can train it, and you can say, "Don't look in these folders," or stuff like that, and or add this set of folders. So you got to add OneDrive, and you have to add the different places you want to look and all that, just like Simplifile. And so it's a nice way if I want to jump into a folder, but I don't want to make bookmarks for all my folders. Quick Jump is the way to do it. But if I have a go-to folder that I want to open all the time, ActiveWords is the way to do it because it's just fewer keystrokes and it just pops the folder right up. The other thing that you can use Quick Jump for that's really nice is like when you are doing an email and then you need to attach a file, right? And so you click attach and it brings up the dialog box where normally you'd have to hunt and peck into the folder, but then you just click Control Shift D, you type in the folder and it takes you right to it. So it's sort of like Simplifile for the Windows file management system.
oh, that actually now you're getting me interested in
It's nice.
and trying another program. I'm looking here on their website. It looks like Quick Jump Standard. So just for the basic person is $47.88 a year or $4 a month if you want to go that way.
Yeah,
The
totally worth it.
enterprise, yeah, the enterprise, which I don't know how many people that covers, is $69.48 a year. So,
Yeah, I think I
but
get the enterprise version because it probably has a couple extra features or whatever. I usually a software like this that I use constantly, many times a day, I'll buy the highest level just in case it has an extra feature or something like that.
no, absolutely. But now you've certainly piqued my interest, so to speak, in checking out Quick Jump, which again, all these products from TechIt,
I know.
yeah, I've never used one I didn't like, uh, but that's just not one I'd ever thought about using. But
Yeah,
I
it's
like
cool. And it
your
works the other way too. Like if you open up Microsoft Word and you start typing out a document and then you click File, Save, instead of hunting and pecking for the place you want to save it, you just, Control Shift D, type in what you think the file name is, and it'll narrow it right down, and then you can save it right into there. So it saves a bunch of time. And sitting next to ActiveWords now, I just feel like in the last month, just this whole mental overload or overhead anyway of dealing with the Windows file system has shrunk down in such a big way. It's been really nice.
yeah, that sounds fantastic. So I'm definitely going to check that out because it's at a certain point when you're doing this sort of roll your own file system, those file naming things get to be pretty long because you have to go to where. So I use ShareFile to store my documents. I have to go with the ShareFile link, and then on top of that, then I go to clients because I've all my client stuff organized in one folder, my business stuff organized in another, et cetera. So, I'm working my way down 3 levels before I even get to a client name. And then once I'm there, I need to go into a matter. And so there's a lot of stuff in there before you even get to the place where you can open or save a document. So I am definitely interested in checking this out.
Yeah, check it out. And I think that's a free trial and you have 30 days before you have to pay. And it's totally functional when you download their trials. So there's no reason not to do it.
Yeah, I'm going to download it, give it a trial, and see how that works out for me.
Yeah,
Well, it
nice.
looks like we're at about 30 minutes, probably a good time to wrap it up now. I will say if you have any questions, comments, topics you'd like to hear us cover, whatever, send us an email at info@theconnectedlawyer.com. I'm Bryan.
I'm Aaron. Thanks for listening.